Hi, my name is Isabel. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be sewing this dress.
She got the white top. I want to spend my life with you.
I had this dress in mind for the longest time and I'm so glad I finally brought it to completion. I just want to show you another version I made in a yellow neon stretchy satin fabric. I wouldn't normally wear or even sew such a color, but I had this sort of challenge that I was doing. Actually, the star of the challenge was the hat and I needed a garment, so I made the dress. But yeah, that's to show you that you can also do it in satin fabric and it's going to look pretty nice. All right, let me show you what other fabrics you could take to carry out this project. For this project, I recommend you take an opaque fabric with a nice drape, which means it's got to be a little bit heavy. You might want to take a heavier crepe, as I did, viscose, linen, satin, twill, light denim, tencel. You can take a fabric including a little bit of elastane. Mine has some, maybe 1 or 2%, but yeah, the pattern was designed for a non-stretchy fabric. You'll need some light woven interfacing and a 60 centimeter long invisible zipper. How to assemble the pattern? Let's have a look at the pattern. This isn't the final version of the pattern, as I'll sew a miniature version of the dress today. That way all the pieces fit in the frame of the camera. I'm going to lay some pages on the table, and what you can notice is that the pages have a letter and a number. You'll order the pages following an alphabetical order for the lines and a numerical order for the columns. So concretely, the lines are all letters, hence all the A's on the first line here, second line is all B's, then C's, and so on, and then the first column is all ones, second twos, and so on. So now I'll cut off the margins only on the right and the bottom, and I'll stick the pages together in order, and then I cut off the pattern pieces. Here are the pattern pieces cut in the paper, 2 fronts, 2 back, and the facings. I wanted to show something specific which is written on the pattern. I'm not showing in this tutorial how to sew the dress with the lining, but you have the option to do so, as I'm giving you the pattern pieces for the lining as well. If it's the case that you want to make the dress with the lining, you'll have to print the pattern pieces twice, and where you can see written cut here for lining, you cut the paper to get the lining pieces, and you don't include this part here, right? Note that the seam allowances are included and they are 1 centimeter big. So for this tutorial, I'll use some muslin fabric, which is a typical fabric for making toiles, 100% cotton. Here is my fabric cut, the middle, the front sides, the sides of the back, and the middle back. Here are the front facings that'll come at the neck, and the back facing, which will come here. Also, the facing is backed with interfacing, and the invisible zipper is 60 centimeter long. Sewing the front parts together. I pin my front parts right sides together and also using a regular stitch length, respecting 1 centimeter of seam allowance. This is what I get. Now I take my back pieces and I do 2 things before sewing the zipper. First, I'm going to stick interfacing along the edges. I have some interfacing strips that I cut off a big piece of interfacing I bought by the yardage. You want the strips to go down past the zipper notches. Adding interfacing, by the way, is necessary here. Okay, it is stuck. And second, I'll now finish the edges with my overlocker. I'll add my zipper. I pin my zipper on one side, right sides together. When I pin, I make sure that the plastic part that stops the zipper head is 1 centimeter away from the edge of the fabric, and I'll sew this one side. Then I pin the other side and I sew in that same fashion. So to be honest, this is not my favorite method here that I'm following to sew my zipper. If you are relatively new to invisible zipper, I'm going to recommend another method, which link you'll find in the description. Okay, that is the result. Now I'll close the portion below the zipper. I pin. I start my seam exactly where the zipper seam ends. I'll stick my needle manually. I'll do securing stitches here and also till the bottom. And that's the result. Now I'm going to add the sides to the center back and I sew right sides together. And at the end of this operation, it will look like this. I'll press down the seam towards the center. I'll now lay the front and the back parts on one another right sides together. I suggest actually pressing down the seam allowances of the front and the back beforehand. I'll pin and also using basting stitches on both the shoulders and the sides. We're making basting stitches all over the place here because it's time to try the dress on and to adjust things if need be. I'm going to show you footage of a real dress I sewed and for which I had to make adjustments. So here's the dress and how it fits me at first. I took a 36. It's fine at the butt. However, it's a bit big at bust and waist. So I turn the dress inside out and I pinch the seam allowances here and there to get the fit I like. I'll pin in place patiently until I'm satisfied. I remove the dress, leaving the pins stuck in the fabric. I take a pen and I draw the lines following the pins, and I'll baste on that line. No final seams yet, right? And the same on the other side. And this is what I get. I tried the dress again. I hesitated a bit to tighten even more at the bust, but the facings will add thickness to the bust area, thus tensing the fabric even more, so I didn't venture, and I was right. I traced that same curve with a pen because the chalk vanishes quickly. And then I removed the basting stitches. I took the facings, both front and back, and I transferred the changes I made. And by the way, the line traced with the pen is the sewing line, not the cutting line, right? So don't forget to add your seam allowance. I sewed the sides with a regular stitch length and I cut the sides on my cutting line here. Also, you can notice that I've removed the basting stitches at the shoulders, so they're now open. Okay, this is important. Open the shoulders. Now I finished the edges, hem included, but not at the shoulders. Here are my facings. I have sewed my back and my front facings right sides together, only at armpit level, not at shoulder level. And actually, I sewed them before transferring the adjustments, just because I was afraid of cutting the fabric, so I postponed it. So now I cut following my cutting line. I choose a direction to flatten my seam allowances, and I finish the outer edge with my overlocker. I turn the dress inside out. I pin the facing to the neckline and armhole area right sides together, like so. Here I'm showing you that I've just made some markings right now with my pen, like 5 centimeters from the shoulder edges. I sew between the 2 marks of the neckline, and the same for the armhole. So in short, we want to leave the shoulders open, right? So I've done my neckline here first. I made some cuts, or notches I think they're called, I'm not sure. And now I flatten the seam allowances towards the facing and I understitch. It's gonna look like this. Same with the armholes. I also cut some notches and I understitch. Now at the back, around the zipper, I fold the fabric right sides together and I sew. Again, I don't get too close to the shoulders like this. I'll trim the seam allowance in the corners. Once it's done, you want to turn the dress so the wrong side is visible, and you turn only the front shoulder area inside out so the right side is visible. You insert the front shoulder in the back shoulder and you pin the parts together. Be careful that the fabric isn't twisted. You want to pin the facings together and the shell together. Then you sew. Once you've sewed, this is what you get. I pull and I sew the sides of the shoulder straps. Once one side is done, we do the opposite one. And you end up with this. I trim the seam allowances a bit. And when I pull, it's all nice and clean. I'll show you the other side even if it's the same process. The back strap is wrong side out. The front strap is right side out. Insert the front in the back, shell against shell, facing against facing. I pin. And I sew. Finally, I'm going to loosely attach the facing to the seam allowances. I had initially sewed an invisible seam connecting the facing to the shell, but it came out visible when I wore the dress, so I removed it. And finally the hem, I just fold the fabric twice and I sew. And this is the final results. I am happy with this fabric. It's a thick polyester crepe with a beautiful drape. The only thing is that it won't really submit to heat when I press it down. Maybe you can see a bit that my front seams aren't super flat. It just didn't work. The plastic was very heat resistant, I guess, which maybe speaks for the quality of the fabric. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you want to be in the know of what I do, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest. And I'll see you soon for another video. Meanwhile, you take care. Kiss.